Okay, welcome back. This is again Devon Carter from Cartech Consulting. Um, we're going to be talking about in this section of the security awareness training, the Internet of Things. Okay, now I'm going to touch briefly on this, and I'm also going to throw in a brief or short section on the cloud. I think it's very important that you as attorneys and anybody in business are aware of the implications with the Internet of Things. Okay, so when we talk about the Internet of Things, um, we are talking about a network of physical objects that contain embedded technology to communicate and sense or interact with their internal states or external environments. Okay, that's a mouthful. Basically, that smartwatch you have on your Apple Watch, that Fitbit, your talking refrigerator, any device that communicates machine to machine or anything like that, that's considered an IoT device, an Internet of Things device. Okay, so these have actually security implications and potentially, especially for attorneys, there's other implications like your attorney-client privilege. So the increase in the internet connected systems and companies is non-linear. Okay, we are expected to have over 24 billion connected devices, right? So what does that mean? The attack surface, the things that bad guys can attack and get access to, is just growing by the day, growing by the hour. Okay, so what does that mean for us? That means that now we have to be even more on our guard with the types of technologies that we incorporate into our businesses, that we use from day to day. Now, what does this mean for you? You have to be careful of the devices that you're connecting to your network. Google Home, Amazon Echo, Internet Connected Clouds. These devices are listening and recording what you say. Remember, if you have a Google Home device or Amazon Echo or something like that in your office and you're dealing with a client, it has to listen to and record everything you say, because it has to listen for the key word that it wants to, that's used to initiate whatever action you want it to take. Okay, so you have to be careful of that, because there is some potential that that data can become public. Okay, and if that has to deal with a client, guess what? You may have some issues potentially. Okay. Now, this was very evident in a case dealing with an Amazon Echo. Court orders for Amazon's records regarding a recording from an Alexa device. Basically, there was a murder that took place somewhere, and they believe that the Amazon Echo may have captured the sound of what was going on in that room. And so those court records, those Amazon records were basically subpoenaed. They wanted those records. And so I believe Amazon complied, and they were actually allowed to introduce those records into as evidence. So that should give you an indication that the courts are saying, yeah, that's fair game. And so you need to be aware of that as you're dealing with this stuff. Okay. That was just a brief thing about IoT. Now let's jump to the cloud. Now everybody's been saying the cloud, the cloud, the cloud. All right. First of all, let me let you know that the cloud isn't anything new. We've been using and I say air quote, cloud for years. Basically, they're huge data centers that have numerous servers in them that can be shared and leveraged between multiple customers. Okay, that's all the cloud is. All right, so nothing new. Okay, now the benefits of the cloud: it reduce costs and capital expenditures, right? Scalability, flexibility, accessibility of data across devices, and sharing and collaboration. What does that mean? That means that in the cloud, if you have a single server, you can virtually segment that server to respond to, or to have multiple clients on it. So let's say you can have 15 clients running on a single server. That means that you didn't have to buy 15 individual servers for each client, right? So that's reducing your capital expenditures. You can scale up or scale down, meaning based on the resources that client needs. You can give them more CPU, more memory, more storage. accessibility of data across devices and sharing and collaboration. All that are the benefits of the cloud. Now here are the risks. Unauthorized access, okay? You don't know who the administrators are for that cloud vendor, okay? And you don't know if there's other clients that have access to that information. Potentially commingled data. As I mentioned, you're gonna have multiple customers on a single server. So there's potential for the commingling of data at the server level and on the storage side. Loss of control. Remember, that data is no longer on your local computer. It's now sitting in the cloud on servers owned by Amazon or by Google or by Microsoft. Unclear roles and responsibilities. Most people don't understand their responsibilities from a security perspective. Typically, the cloud vendors, depending on the service that you have with them, the cloud vendors are not responsible for securing the servers that you have in the cloud. You are. And most people don't realize that. They assume that, oh, it's a cloud server. If it gets breached, then the cloud vendor is responsible. Well, read your contract more closely. It probably does not say that. And there will be some liability for you. Difficult for forensic investigations. Well, if you have multiple clients on a single server, well, if you're trying to do some forensic investigation on that server, you have to be sure, or the cloud vendor has to be sure that you're not looking at the other client's data, right? You should only be looking at your data. Well, that can be hard to do if the data is commingled, okay? And then access difficulties. All right, say that you want to end your relationship with your cloud vendor, all right? Are you sure that they're gonna destroy the data? Are they gonna send the data back? What does your contract say? Who has access to it, okay? Is it only your company? Do they have vendors that they work with that have access to it? They have other employees that have a lot of access to the data. Who has access? These are all risks that come into play when you're dealing with cloud. Why is this important? Why am I mentioning this? Because a lot of attorneys use a cloud-based service for their billing, for legal matters and all that type of stuff. So you need to be aware of these things when you are signing these contracts and dealing with these vendors. What are your responsibilities? What access rights do you have? Who has access? All this type of stuff. Now, these are some risk controls. Obviously, number one, investigate your vendor. Make sure they're a reputable vendor. There's a lot of companies popping up that are providing cloud-based services. So make sure they have a good reputation. Determine who owns the data. Once the data is uploaded into the cloud, do you still own the data, or does that ownership pass to the cloud vendor? You need to understand that. Determine confidentiality. Who has access from the cloud vendor side of the house, okay? Know the location and storage of data. A lot of these big cloud vendor companies, they have the ability to store your data all over the world based on their resource availability. So you want to make sure that your data, especially if you're a law firm, is stored locally in the United States or maybe in your state. So you need to check on that and understand where the data is actually being stored. Know how they log system access and usage. You need to know who's going in and out of that data, who has access to that data. And you want to make sure that they're logging the people who are accessing the data that you have in the cloud on a regular basis, right? So that if there's an issue, you can always come back and say, hey, the logs show that nobody logged in, or the logs show that somebody logged in. Exit strategy. How do you get your data back when you want to end the relationship? What are you going to do when they say, okay, well, we're not giving your data back? Is there any contractual obligation for them to provide the data or give the data back to you? Or are they just going to destroy it, which will maybe not be good for you if you don't have local copies of the data? Confirm vendor's full acceptance of liability. Okay, this is a big one. Understand where your responsibility lies. If that company gets breached, are they responsible or are you responsible? Because remember, you as the customer, you still have to respond to your customers, right? Your clients, right? You have to be able to understand what are the implications of the breach. So you need to understand the liability structure. And then obtain client's consent to use cloud storage. Okay, that's a big one. Make sure your client is aware. Give them the option. Do you mind if we store this in the cloud? It's a little bit cheaper for us, or it's easier for us to access it. In the case of emergencies, we can get to it, things like that. Put together a policy. Let your clients see it so they know what their risk is and their liability is too. So that's it. Okay, keep those things in mind when you talk about the cloud. As we mentioned earlier, IoT devices, make sure they're not in the room with you when you're consulting with clients and things like that. And that's it. All right. So again, this is Devon Carter from Cartech Consulting, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks.